All right, we are in the cave with Glen Quasny. Glenn, I'd like to get your impression of the Avengers movie.
I'm sorry, I don't do impressions.
Oh,
Oh my gosh.
damn
I'm sorry.
you.
It's Airplane. Yeah, the Avengers movie was great. There it is. That's it in a nutshell. Um, yeah, I thought about this because I knew you were going to ask about it, so I was thinking about it. I was thinking I'm not going to have anything to say because it's like the perfect comic book movie. It's like they took a story right out of the comics and put it on the screen, and it lives up to all the expectations a fan might have. Um, you get sucked right into it. That would I don't know what else to say. It's great. I'm surprised that it's the big number one movie and taking in billions of dollars, but because it's still a comic book movie. I mean, it's not you know.
Well, the other Marvel films did pretty well. This time, I was concerned about the number of main characters they had. Usually in these kind of films, there's one or two heroes. This time, they've got six. Does anyone outshine the other?
That was something I was concerned about too, going into the film, because in all the pre-movie ads, all the teasers for it and everything, it was predominantly Robert Downey Jr., Tony Stark, Iron Man, and I guess his movies have been the most successful, so it makes sense that that's what you would go with to sell people on going to see the Avengers. But it had me concerned that it was going to be Iron Man 3, co-starring the Avengers, and I was worried about that. But when I got in and was watching the movie, I was very impressed by the way they singled out each character and gave them their moment. And not only just gave them their moment, but throughout the whole film, they managed to weave the characters together so that it was a cohesive whole. You could get, you got the feeling that these people, as disparate as they are, as much as you would think, no way could these people work together, they work together as a team because they each have their own qualities and they bring their own strengths. And the Hawkeye and Black Widow characters, for example, are major, they were a major cause for people to think, this could never work because, even before the movie came out, people were making jokes about it, and then after the movie came out, there were jokes about it. They're the characters that people focus on as not belonging in a way because they're not super powerful. They're not, these huge, powerful super characters.
They're mortals.
Right, and amongst comic fans, there would be some debate for that, because there's always this idea that they couldn't keep up with these guys if they didn't have some kind of power. So, like Hawkeye being this great an archer, you figure he must have some sort of little super heroic thing in him that makes him that great an archer, that makes him more than human. But yeah, they're supposed to be human beings who are simply, well, I hate to steal Chris Claremont's line from Wolverine, but they're the best. They're the best they are at what they do. That's what Wolverine always used to say. He's the best there is at what he does. But that's what Hawkeye is the best archer in the world. Black Widow is the best spy in the world, and those are strengths that they bring to the team that the team would be lacking. It would be less. They'd be less successful if they didn't have those qualities.
So, can they hold their own against Iron Man and Hulk?
Hold their own in the sense of they bring something to the team. Not hold their own in the sense of one-on-one they could beat them or even stand up to them. I mean, you're pushing it with Captain America, but still, Captain America has that shield that is made out of a special alloy that I think it's supposed to be vibranium or something that absorbs all forms of energy.
I'm sorry, vibranium?
It's a comic book word. It's vibranium. They have these two metals in the Marvel universe. One is adamantium, I think it's pronounced, and the other one is vibranium. One of them is practically indestructible, and the other one absorbs energy and shock, or whatever you want to call it. So you could have a character who's been brought to the peak of human capacity, the way Captain Marvel is. Captain America. He's been given the super soldier formula and bathed in these rays and stuff that have caused him to kind of super evolve into the perfect man. So he has perfect control over his muscles and everything, and his synapses fire, at the absolute fastest that persons can. And if you've watched Stan Lee's TV series that he's got, where he goes out and he finds people in the world who are the best at what they do, you realize that there are human beings out there who are on that edge of being almost super powerful. He had a guy on who could draw and fire a gun so fast that they almost weren't able to record it, with film and everything.
So all of these people have special abilities, but individually.
Individually. And where I was going with the Captain America one is he's the peak of human perfection. Anything anybody else can do, he can do it as well or better. And then he's got the shield, so you kind of think, okay, yeah, he could crouch down, prepare himself, hold that shield, and Thor, who's a demigod, could hit it and he could survive. Which is, they had that scene in the film, and you kind of go, okay, without the shield, he'd be splattered. But being as powerful as he is and having the shield, he could stand up to Thor. Hawkeye and Black Widow, not so much. But Black Widow would probably be able to talk Thor out of hitting her, and Hawkeye could probably get out of the way really fast. So in that sense, they have their own abilities. They can do things.
Now, with Hawkeye and Black Widow, did they tell their origin story, or did they get right into the action?
They do get right into the action. This film starts off, boom, action, and it keeps going. They have moments where they focus on each character, so each character gets their moments, but they did not go back and do like origin stories, which I think was very smart on their part, because origin stories would have slowed this film to a crawl and ruined it. And you don't really need to know. I mean, when you say someone is a spy, I think we all have had enough years of James Bond and The Man from U.N.C.L.E. and so on and so forth that okay, she's a spy. We kind of get her skill set. And Archer, people know from the Smallville TV series, a lot of people know Green Arrow. And archery. We know what an archer does. Robin Hood. Most of us have grown up with the legend of Robin Hood. Here's a guy who was so good that he could, split a shaft with another shaft right in the middle of the bullseye. So we know, okay, that's Hawkeye's skill set. He's good with a bow and arrow. Okay, great. And some of his arrows are tricked. They blow up or whatever. So, good. You don't really need to know how he came to this point in his life. He's there, But they do have a couple of scenes with those characters where you get a little taste that there is something in their background that brought them to this point, and it's just enough where you're interested and you want to know more, which is great for future films, either a future Avengers film, or perhaps they'll do a Hawkeye film or a Black Widow film.
Was there any point in this film when you thought, like, no way, that's just too much, I can't believe what's going on?
Yes. I was kind of surprised because, you go in thinking, it's a comic book movie. How can they make this work in live action? But they do, and I was so sucked into the movie and going along with it and buying it. My suspension of disbelief was in full, speed mode there. I was going right along with it, and it surprised me because when the moment came where, for a moment, I was out of it, it surprised me at how good it had been. And then how it quickly sucked me back in. There was just this one instant where it was like at the height of the big battle where they're completely surrounded by these incredible monsters. And sure, you've got the Hulk, who is not only super strong, but he gets stronger and stronger and stronger. He can get as strong as he wants. The angrier he gets, the stronger he gets. And there's Thor, who's a demigod, and he can draw down lightning. And there's Captain America, who, like I said, the pinnacle of human perfection in every way, mentally, physically. And then Tony Stark, Iron Man, genius, with the cutting edge of every type of technology at his fingertips. Those guys you can kind of see, okay, yeah. But when you see a circle, and they're in it, and with them is the Archer and the super spy, there was that one moment that brought me out there going, those poor guys are going to die. The rest of them will make it, but those two characters are going to be toast. There's no way. I mean, this is just impossible. It's ridiculous. There's no way I could believe this. But then a couple of seconds later, you've forgotten that you were pulled out of it that way, And I think the director did a great job that way too, because he gave you that moment of there's no way two regular human beings could be part of this group, and then a minute later you're like, oh yeah, they're totally in it. You know, they have their jobs to do, and they're doing them, and they are good at it. You know, so yeah, there was that moment where I broke, you know, the film. Oh no, this is totally unrealistic, but then it worked. It was like, oh yeah, you know, I kept going.
So this film worked.
This film totally worked. This probably is the best superhero film ever. Hard to believe anyone will ever be able to top it. I keep trying to think of what they could do to top it. You know?
Where they kind of hint at the end where they're going to go next.
Yes, they
where
do.
do they go? Spoiler alert.
Spoiler alert. Yes. Earlier in the film, you do get the feeling that Loki had to go to this other dimension and negotiate with someone who's actually more powerful than he is in order to get the army he needed to invade the world and take over and get human beings to worship him the way that he wanted to be worshipped, and that this is just a stepping stone on his way to taking over Odin's throne and becoming, you know, the supreme demigod of Valhalla and all that. But you know, there were a couple of moments where you knew he wasn't the top guy. There was somebody over him. There was somebody he had to go to make an alliance with in order to do this. And then towards the very end, when they've beat him and everything's, you know, kind of back to normal, they do cut away to a scene where there's a discussion going on between a minion and this dark other dimensionally character that Loki has been negotiating with, discussing the failure and what's coming out of it and everything. And you know, I mean, if you're a comic fan, you know what's coming, and yet it's still so cool because he's in the shadows and he's dark, and then when he steps out and they do the reveal, it's Thanos, who is practically a god himself, and he worships, not only worships, but he is in love with death. In the Marvel Universe, they actually personify concepts such as death. So there is an entity, Death, who represents all death in the universe, and it's represented as this dark shrouded woman, and she is the woman that Thanos loves. He is in love with death, literally, in the comic universe. You can do this sort of thing. And so his motivation is that in order to show her how much he loves her, he has to bring death to the universe, not just to Earth or to a solar system or to a galaxy, but to the entire universe. So he is a cosmic being with cosmic plans to destroy everything.
Well, that sounds like the next movie's going to be pretty big.
Yeah, it sounds like, you know, they may actually be able to stop you. Watching the movie The Avengers, you're thinking, no way are they ever going to, what are they going to do for a sequel? What could they possibly do? And then they show you Thanos and you go, oh, of course. They're going to be able to top this movie, and I'm really looking forward to it.
Do you think they can only do 2 movies because Thanos is such a big threat that is it?
You know, where they've been really successful is in translating the whole concept that Stan Lee had for an integrated universe of characters. What Stan Lee did in the early 60s with the Marvel Universe and comics, these people are doing in movies with the Marvel Universe. They are successfully bringing the Marvel Universe to movies. And the Marvel Universe has been going for what now? 60, 70, 80, 90, 40 years, something? And they've managed to introduce these characters and keep topping themselves over the years, you know. So I can see how they can at least get a trilogy out of this, and they may be able to keep going for a lot longer. You know, if they just keep to what they're doing, if they just keep following Stan Lee's blueprint for a universe where the stories just keep getting bigger and better. You know, so you really have something to look forward to.
So this film works.
Absolutely, not just successful, but they knocked it out of the park. It was terrific. Right?
Glenn, thanks a lot for your take on the Avengers.
Well, thank you for asking all the right questions. Making me sound good.